Okay, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out, and welcome to Ben and Eve, our guest speakers for today. We really appreciate your time and your knowledge and helping us in the real estate industry at the moment. I did want to start with just a little welcome, and I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen? It's not showing me the green line. Yeah, it's got a little chart on it about findings in property management. Yep, beautiful. Okay. So as an overview, PRET is professional real estate training. We are a registered training organisation and we train in real estate and business. Currently, our numbers, we're having probably 60 attend the class during per month, and another 40 who are doing traineeships with us. We then have external students of maybe 20 a month coming in. So numbers are quite large of those coming into the industry. However, there is a big hole in the industry. Those who were with us during COVID would know that there was a huge attrition of people leaving the industry. And this that I have on my screen might be a little bit about why that is, and hence why we have today a retired psychologist, Eve, with us. And I'll give you a little bio about Eve in a moment, and Ben to talk about risk management and see if we can make this job maybe a little bit more enjoyable, or at least a little bit more that we can cope with it. So this survey was done in 2021 by the Voice of Property Management, and it was just released last month in February. And there's the Great Resignation, which is a term that we are finding across the globe at the moment. And it's saying there 23% of people are thinking of leaving. Mental health struggles, I think that's a huge number at 53%, so over half of the people in the industry who were surveyed, and it was quite a large number in the survey. It was over 700 are saying they're struggling with mental health. And I might just ask you, Eve, do you know any stats in any type of industries as to what sort of numbers people would say they're struggling with their mental health in a particular profession?
It's a great question, and I don't have those stats. I'm aware that there has been quite a big increase because the demand on psychologists is so overwhelming that people can't be serviced, which is really difficult when people are at their wits' end and there's a wait list of 6 months or a year. So it's quite significant.
Yeah.
I think the psychologists themselves are struggling. So
wow. And that my apologies, Eve, because I did throw that at you without any warning. I have heard that too. I have had other friends recently qualify and become psychologists, and I have had friends who are looking for them and have said the same thing. Those wait times are just horrendous. Dealing with conflict, this is interesting. 60% of our property managers are saying that that's their biggest challenge, where only 38% of principals agree with you. So that's an interesting perspective, that those at the coalface, 60%, whereas the bosses don't think that's an issue. So I think there needs to be more open dialogue between the property managers and your principals. Hybrid working, the 39% of people there would like to work hybrid, so working from home and the office, or intend to, whereas the work from home mindset, 34% of property managers are not permitted to work from home. So I think that probably needs to be something that changes in the future with our principals. If I have any principals on here with us, that's something that needs to be investigated. Career pessimism, that used to be 56% were satisfied, now only 37%. So just maybe a little bit of career planning needs to happen, I think, in the industry. Busyness factor, 16% of property managers think they are far too busy, with 31%, up to a range of 31% of those managing more than 200 properties. I would hope nobody on with us today is managing 200 or more properties. That's a huge portfolio per person. Typically the range is around 120 to 150, depending on what assistance you have, of course, behind you. CX means client focus. So agencies are looking at better ways to improve the landlord satisfaction. While a little bit less than that, 43% are prioritising tenant services. And finally, our last two statistics out of the survey, a third or just over a third of property managers believe that they've been given the training. So that's, I think, is a huge gap there. So hopefully our webinars that we do monthly may be able to assist in filling that gap. And tech changes, you know, a whopping half of property managers have had a change in technology over the past 2 years, and only a third, only 34% of property managers believe they have the tools that they need to do their job properly. So just a little bit of stats that I wanted to start with so that people can see that perhaps you're not alone in what you're facing at the coalface, and that is what a survey has come out from last year. To introduce our first speaker, Ben from Reddy Shaw Insurance, and Ben's going to talk about risk assessment. Ben's had 7 to 8 years in the insurance field, coming from the private sector through to commercial, and prior to that he was in the finance sector. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Ben, so just tell me your experience over the last few weeks at the height on that Saturday when people were floating about. What sort of numbers, what calls were you getting? What were you seeing and experiencing?
On that day particularly, the flood where it started, we opened our 24-hour hotline on that day. I personally picked about 120 calls on that day.
Just yourself?
Just myself. It's a very long day, to be honest. The anxiety, the mental problems, all the issues on that day. Probably about 70 to 80% is not my client.
Wow.
So, yeah, so probably about 90% is not my client.
So when you
that
say,
just shows.
yeah, when you say not your client, were they still a client of the company, or they just weren't a client?
No. So what we did on that particular day is we post a lot of posters. It's just regardless where you come from, who is your insurance broker, or regardless about all the conditions. If you have problems, call us. We're willing to help. It's just one of the things I think as one of the person from this industry, we should do that. So we did send a lot of poster out. So basically the people on that day, as you can imagine, it's Saturday. Mostly the call center of the insurance company is not working. And yeah, so unfortunately, that's just show how desperate the people on that day. They're just trying to grab anything they can in their hands, trying to have an answer. Yeah. From someone who may have some industry knowledge, such like me.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
that's huge. And that was wonderful of your company to do that, because obviously there was a real need for people who were physically grabbing, as you say, grabbing whatever they can with their hands, but emotionally, which we will deal with Eve, reaching out to see what sort of cover, what it's going to be. Going through those stages of what insurance, what recourse there is for them. That's huge. So you did tell me a story that I'd like you to tell again, Ben, of when we go into risk management of the Body Corp and what happened with them 3 or 4 months prior to the flooding.
It's a bizarre. Obviously, this is one of the complex. The whole Body Corp community has a vote to say, look, because that complex is in the flood zone, which is their insurance, their strata insurance cost them quite a lot of money to do so every year, which is they probably vote to remove the flood section from their insurance. Yes, it's a very horrible story. Honestly, it's just one of the things I got. And then just people have no idea how they're gonna deal with it, and just that's it. That's the end of the story with pretty much everyone living that complex.
Everyone that, so in the body court, all of those owners had a vote.
Yes.
All voted to remove the flood.
Correct.
From the insurance. Wow. I know you may not know this off the top of your head, and again, I'm throwing this at you, Ben, without any warning, but any thoughts of roughly how much that would have been per owner or per property, what that flood insurance policy would have been?
It's very hard to guess. Generally speaking, with strata insurance, it's with their rate, generally for the flood, it really depends on the risk.
Yeah.
And the insurance company may add a little bit of levy on each policy to just say, look, it may charge you about 200% of the levy for about the flood. So that's how they're calculating their rate. So everyone's rate is the same, but it's just different sort of conditions. If you have 200 units, you may have a bit more levy on that. So it's the whole structure of the strata insurance. Strata insurance is a type of insurance. It's a very independent industry. So it's one insurance. The strata insurer is not provides any other insurance but the strata insurance itself, which is they only deal with one product. So that's how they're calculating all their rates and all their premiums every year. For example, if you talk about your premiums like 20 grand a year, it's a significant flood area. I doubt that the insurance company will cover that, but if they want to cover it, probably about 200 or 300%. So 2 or 3 times of the premium. So your insurance can reach to 60 to 70,000 a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that was just showing on your body corporate face, everything. Yeah.
Wow. So the complex wasn't covered then. So tenant wise, but could the tenant then have their own contents insurance? That would be something separate. And typically, if it's in a flood area, which this complex was, that tenant's insurance would probably have quite a big levy on it for flood then as well. Would that correlate?
Yeah, that really depends on every insurance company, what their policy is, because some I believe mostly the insurance company will have the flood option available, but it really depends on the locations, such like in their data. It probably has a couple of the suburb, which is they already blocked the suburb. If you really want to have the flood, you just need to manually refer that back to them, and then that's where they start to calculating and just have a look in their flood mapping, because flood mapping is also changing every year. So yeah, so that's something. Yeah, that's just the product how that works.
Yeah.
So you could have the flood, you could not. So you may can have them, but sometimes you can't even buy them. So.
Wow. Yeah. I know when you talk about flood mapping, that was something that came in after the 2011 flood, particularly. And as real estate agents, were then every property we were listing, we were checking the flood mapping and assessing what risks were for buyers, and then passing on the information that we could. So let's talk about risk management.
Yeah.
How is that different from the insurance side? What is risk management?
All right. So our take from our company. So what we decide to do instead of the just a traditional insurance broker, which is it's a very simple rule. If you don't know your risk, there's no point you talk about insurance, because you don't even know what the insurance you need. So to find out, this is a whole. I think it's for the industries we need to change our logic, which is we are the risk advisor first, because according to our experience, I told all my clients, I don't know how good your company can be, but I definitely know how bad it can be. So we are the bad news center. Fortunately, my experience is all come from the bad experience, bad history. Everything is in the horrible shape. But that's why I think to do my job right is to teach my client or educate my client about the risk first, because they only need to understand their risk, and then they can find out what sort of insurance they can buy. Because the insurance, at the end of the day, insurance is not the 100% solution. It only can cover you from the very basic level. It's the very limit of the functionality of insurance itself. So insurance can't add the value on your life. It only can bring your loss to whatever it used to be. It's back to the original, but you can't add the value. So insurance is the last, from our perspective, the insurance is your last defense. It's never your first defense. It's your definitely the last defense. If you run out of all the energy or all the ideas, everything, and then there's something to hope from the bottom.
That is very much a change in mindset, isn't it? Because people tend to think that insurance is the first line of defense, whereas looking at the risk is what you're saying should be the first line of defense. Assessing
that's
the risk.
right.
Insurance,
Because
is a stopgap at the end.
Because if you don't understand the risk, there's no point to talk about all the other things after that. So that's why the risk, we proactively just trying to give our customer risk management. Some of the companies don't even need that full-on risk management. It's just a couple of the points they need to think. So if we talk about the risk management, obviously the first step is you need to identify the risk.
Yeah.
The worst risk you can possibly have is the risk you don't even know that it exists.
Yes.
That's my point of view. It's the people, where's the anxiety, all the mental breakdown, everything is come from the unknown situation that then it's just something you don't even understand how the hell this is happening. It's just, on that day, the Saturday, the 120 calls, I think about 60 or 70% of the people, they just don't know they are in the flood zone, or they don't even know the difference between the flood and the water damage. There's boiling water going to their property, and they say, oh, it was like, okay, cool, where you live? It's like, I'm living under that. I was like, that's not a flood. Like if your house is sinking in the water right now, I think half of the Brisbane is already gone by now. So I was like, look, that was relaxed. Even though you don't have the flood, that's fine, because that's the water damage. It's not a flood. Floods come from the river. Right? So water damage from the top, flood from the bottom. So I only can have very short terms to educate them, because my phone is just playing all day. So I'm just trying to describe, look, it's a water damage. All you have to do, collect all the data, collect all the repair costs, send to your insurer. That's it.
Yeah.
So that.
Sorry. As a property manager, for them to now help identify risks with landlords, should they be looking at initially just flood mapping, or just chatting to their landlord about what insurance do you have? What sort of direction should they be giving to landlords for the landlords to assess the risk going forward? I
told all my real estate managers, we have a big portfolio of the real estate managers. Number one priority, there's no verbal messaging. You need to send an email, black, white, to your customer. That's the number one tip. If I give every single real estate agent out there, please write the email. All right, don't just say, hey, I told you before. All the claims I've been through in the past is the liability claim, the PI claim, all the claims I go through with my client, which frequently you will hear the term, she said, I said, you said, he said, this type of term all over the place. So, it's a simple email you can do. It takes you about 2 minutes to write the thing to the customers, say, hey, this is the things you need. couple of the things you need for your property, and I recommend you to have them.
Yeah.
That's it, full stop.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it's like my experience. A lot of people say, hey, this is a very good owner. I love them. I don't know why they just turn their back on me just immediately like that. We're just like most hateful people in the world right now. It's like, look, it's just you can't trust a human.
Yeah.
You honestly, you can't trust a human being. It's just a natural. It's one of the natural actions they're gonna take. It's very defensive. Once you have that things a lot, they will switch on that defensive mode straight away. Which is, I think, it's one of the emails you can send to them. It's also part of your job compliance as well, because how you're gonna filing all your documentations, everything. Every real estate agent, I think you got all the good filing systems, you got everything, but unfortunately, a lot of people are just saying, hey, look, I can just skip this. And that's it. Imagine if we skip one step and my client, what's the loss on their part is just, it's going to be very significant. So.
Yeah. No, that's good tip. Everything should always be in writing. And as you're saying, we do have great software now in property management that it tends to track and we log everything, but there are still those conversations that are had, which we just follow them up with an email that will suffice. Right, great tip. So across the board, looking at and I suppose I'm going back to the insurance side, the good old landlord insurance.
Yes.
I have clients who have had that within their bank, so talking about the finance sector, and those that have it through particular companies. I don't know if I can mention company names, but I think we all know there's certain companies that just deal with landlord insurance. So I'm just using that as an example for different policies when people do look at coming back to what to pick on their risk. Are they better to go with companies that specialize in the type of insurance that they're looking for? Or is it, something that's across the board, we get discounts, we throw everything all into the one hat? What do you think would be the best? Are they better to look at the best policy or just all under one umbrella? What would be the best?
The reality, look, I can share this with most of the people. The reality for this insurance world is very limited. So regardless how many of the brands you saw online, there's a millions of the online insurance companies right now. At the end of the day, it's only 4 or 5 insurers really underneath of that.
The underwriters. You mean
the underwriter itself?
Okay.
The real underwriter at the bottom line is Allianz, the CGU, the QBE, the Suncorp. If we talk about some of the companies you mentioned, I'm fully aware which company that is. And then that's part of a very big organization as well. I think that belongs to the Suncorp group, if I'm not wrong. So underwriters, they got pretty similar product structures because all the product is according to the government.
Yeah.
The basic functionality is all the same. The benefit part is may have a little bit different. So such like your loss of rent, one company can cover for 36 weeks, another to the 54 weeks. So that's the difference. Honestly, it's everyone is willing to compromise something to deal with the premiums, the sales, the marketing. So it's put this way, there's no best product on the market. It's the most suitable level of cover you need. So I tell all my clients, all you have to do is spending a little bit of time to read that PDF, or most of the company now has a product sheet, which is 1 page. It's pretty much demonstrate what their benefits. You don't have to read that 50 or 60 page PDFs anymore. All you have to do is they give you a bullet point, like what you covered. That's it. Just read it. Just 1 or 2 minutes. It's a 1 or 2 minutes job. honestly. When you got understand what you covered, that's a peace of mind. You don't need to worry about. It's not you need to review every year to find your benefits, what your benefits are. It's always there. If they need to change some benefits, they will give you a email say, hey, we remove this session, please be aware. And that's where you can start to shop around with the other companies if that's what you really care. So like you rent these 4 sessions. During the COVID, the first period of the COVID start, mostly the insurance company remove the rent default session.
Yeah.
Because the government say, hey, you can't force the people go move out. So that's where all the companies say, oh, red flag, let's go.
Yeah.
Just remove that session. Let's not selling that. Yeah, so that's the reality. And embargoes they put it on constantly. They do things. So one of the concepts I always share with my client, which is insurance company is not a Red Cross. They are not a charity organization. They are the public or private profitability that's so important with all these companies. Of course, they're gonna put some clause on. Okay, they're betting on the percentage, on the on the disaster, on the futures. So where that's where you just need to spending 1 or 2 minutes just read it. Honestly, just have a briefing idea. You don't have to be the expert like me, but you just have to read a little bit things before you do it. It's not like you buy a car and then you buy an insurance and you just leave as it is. It's like you don't even know what you're covered for, like a sum insured amount, the market value. Are you covered with a great value or the market value? You don't even know anything about that. So that's just spend a little bit of time. Insurance deserves your attention for at least 5 minutes.
Great point. Great point. So I think our takeaways are, as you're saying, everything in writing, and just run your eye over that summary to know what you are covered for and what you're not. So my last question is, you may know property managers can get referral fees from various insurance companies. Get paid for their landlords taking out landlord insurance. Good idea or not? What do you think? Should they let landlords do it themselves? Hand the ball back to them?
Look, I can take my commission. It's part of my income, but the thing is, the real estate agents took that from the insurance company as part of their referral fee. It's okay. It's one of the things everyone doing that, but when you take that money, you need to realize you're carrying the same level of the responsibilities. That's the thing. That's your duty. If you take the money and say, hey, look, that's it, easy money. There's no easy money anywhere. Honestly, when you take the money, customer will say, hey, look, one day they will find out. Oh, look, you take the $20 from my insurance company and you took that as a commission. What do you do to my client? Have you done the claims for me? Like, why I'm the one going to do the claim? The people will pop that kind of questions all the time. It just, you have to be upfront. I guess it's just, you have to be upfront with the client. Say, hey, look, that's my rewarding. It's part of my income as well. If you can explain, I think most of the people have no problem with that. It's your income. You demonstrate that, and that's it. That's very simple to understand for everybody. But if you hide it and you think, well, I take nothing, guys, and then reality is you got, like $4,000, $5,000 or something, or from the insurance company. And then that's where the people raise the question, say, hey, what do you have done to my insurance?
No, you're right. And legally, we have to declare it. It's something that we have to.
And one question I want to cover that is, when you purchase the policy for your client, obviously, you need to know what you purchase as well. Is your client related to your client understand, and does your client fully aware about what they cover for, like, you know, all the sum insured amounts, such like your rent default. Like if you demonstrate that, hey, look, this rent is like $550, and where in the next year it's about 600 or 700 raise the rent, but you forgot about the insurance section.
Yeah.
You didn't review that section. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
That's going to be your PI problems, your professional service part. So that's why if you take the money, obviously, guys, you just have to at least do your work. I shouldn't say that, but it's just part of that. That's the process. If you systemize your work, that's pretty simple and easy. All you have to do is just spend 2 or 3 minutes, review that policy, and let the customer, you know, have their insurance.
Excellent. And I think we've all, you know, as property managers, we've all dealt with insurance claims on behalf of our landlords and come across, I've come across a landlord, I had a death of a tenant and the landlord didn't have landlord insurance cover for that situation. So, you know, it really is just those situations that you come across that when you ask the landlord for their insurance, it needs to be there. Thank you, Ben. I know that you're a busy man with what's going on in your world, so we appreciate your time. I will share your contact details and company at the end, and I'll post this in our Facebook group and to all our participants. But thank you. We really appreciate your time. And
thank you very much.
See you again. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah. All right.
Bye now. Wow. We were going to ask Ben some questions, but we are running out of time. So my apologies. If there is any questions that you did want to ask Ben, you can pop them in the chat and I will perhaps put them on our Facebook page and see if Ben has any direction on them. Eve, welcome. Eve is a now retired clinical psychologist. She had a practice of 20 years and had 1,000 clients. Many had experienced trauma, including personal and financial losses, accidents, violence, illnesses, etc., as well as unpredictable events. Eve used a range of psychological strategies to suit each person's situation. And prior to that, Eve was for over 3 decades in IT. That's an interesting flick from IT, which is very impersonal, through to psychology, Eve, and supporting senior management. So thank you, Eve, for joining us. As we know, a bit of tough time in the real estate world. Now, I'm just going to share these results of this poll with you, Eve. For those that joined us a little bit late, there was a poll you could do. It is still open. And I've got 33% of people, whoops, wait a minute, sorry, back to the top. I've got, yes, 33% of our participants here today have had their portfolio flood. And only about, I'm doing the math here, about that, no, probably about 30% also had their own homes flooded. And I've also asked in that survey if you're working in COVID during the initial stages, and only 30% were, and the other weren't. So that's where we're saying about is a lot of new people coming into the industry. A lot of our experienced property managers did leave during the COVID early days. And the last question was about after hours and servicing our clients. 33% have said yes, they answer the phone after hours. 50% have said they'll answer emails after hours. And only under 20% have said no, they won't attend to inquiries. So there's a lot of people that are still after work, not putting down the tools and dealing with the situations that they've got in their portfolio. So initially, Eve, as we were speaking, we wanted to just identify for people that are going through this, and whether that's you property managers yourself or somebody that has been in this situation, what are those stages that people are going through, Eve, emotionally?
Thanks very much. The stages or phases are really quite clear. The first thing is the shock. It's unexpected. we feel out of control. We might be terrified. We might sort of become frozen. So that first stage, this is happening. I'm not expecting it. What do I do? And it has a huge impact, because when the brain is just spinning and there's disbelief and fear and terror, and some people have a sense of failure, their anxiety spikes if they have it, they feel powerless. And it has been for many people life-threatening. So what happens then when we have any kind of shock or accident or injury like that? Our fight, flight, freeze, the part of the brain, the survival part of the brain, operates faster than anything else, always trying to keep us safe. So the fight, flight, freeze activates, and that activates in actually 0.025 of a millisecond. So it's very quick. 1 minute we're fine, the next minute the whole body is now changed. The chemistry is actually changed. And the reason is because if it's, if the house is collapsing, you need to run. If the water's coming up, there's some things where you've just got to look at it, and our survival instinct takes over in a way, because the big conscious part of the brain, the most powerful part in the front, is actually knocked out pretty much when we're in this fight, flight, freeze mode. So it is very useful to grab the children and get out of the house or climb to a high place. That's what it's for. And we will have, because we've got adrenaline and cortisol in our body, we will have a lot of strength pumping through us, because adrenaline is strength. So we will be able to do things we wouldn't have thought able to, climb over something or pull our kids up. That's the first stage. And for some people, that's gone on terribly long if they were in a car that was floating. So all of that, the one benefit you have is the fast thinking, survival thinking, and the extra strength to do what you can need to do at the time. And the basics that we all need to not go into fight, flight, freeze very much is the essentials. So food, water, safety, just a sense of knowing where we are, a sense of control. And some of the things with the insurance, the gentleman, it was very clear about the sense of control. So we've got our physical and emotional, financial, all of those needs to be met. And in an instant, they disappear. So now we're operating more on this fight, flight, freeze, which, as I say, is useful for the emergency, but as quickly as possible, we need to move that into what we can call the adjustment phase. So in the adjustment phase, perhaps you would have need to have escaped the absolute risk to life, or to get yourself somewhere that is relatively safe. Now, in the second phase, there's this, so say that you're in a different place, but it's in some rental, or you're living with people, and now there's this overwhelming, my house is gone, our insurance didn't cover it properly, 2 of the children can't sleep anymore, our finances don't cover us, and those reality of those things start to seep in now. And for some people, and people do respond differently, some people will have safety and have a sense of insurances, and that'll work. And that'll really help them during this stage. They can know, I can go to my insurer, there can be money, I have got relatives that'll help me. Other people are in, unfortunately, a very much worse condition. And they possibly don't have a lot of money anyway, they don't have a safety net. And maybe the people that they know are in the same situation they are, which is not having a backup plan. So for them, getting the necessities of life sorted out seem overwhelming. And again, when we're overwhelmed, even though we're not in a desperate situation at that time physically, the overwhelm for some people can just, again, shut off thinking. So that would be the freeze mode, that we just, or the brain's just spinning. We just stuck. It's like being mentally paralyzed, and we can't even comprehend what's happening, because there's an adjustment that has to happen when we go from one situation to something as dramatic as that. The brain has to come to terms with all sorts of things. The loss of safety, security, a house that they've spent 30 years building up. There's so many losses, and unexpected loss on its very own. takes a huge toll on all of us, because there's grief and there's regret and all sorts of strong emotions come in. So they are not helping either as we're going through the adjustment phase. So what is helpful is to focus on what you do need. So shelter and food. And this will be a really good time not to put hard pressures on yourself. To know that you just have to do 1 or 2 things that day, to ask for help, to know that it's good to cry when you just need to cry, or shout at the universe if you just need to do that. We want to release some of the trauma and fear and frustration and anger and confusion. Sometimes that's useful. Some people want to write it down. Some people will speak to someone that will really understand. But so you're continuing now this adjustment. This did happen. But we do need to deal with the emotional, how do I survive this? So what happens then is, as the time goes on, many people will have difficulty sleeping or thinking or planning. And might keep having these spikes of thinking it's happening again, the running from the house, or the terrible sound of the rain and the rain coming in the house. So some of the fight, flight, freeze is still going on, and they're doing what they can to find a plan for the next stage of their life. So that continued difficulty sleeping, and sleep, by the way, is one of the most important things we can do for our physical health, mental health, clear thinking. It's a very precious part of our lives, because the brain does a huge amount of clear out and reprocessing and putting everything neatly into place. Well, if you're not doing that each night, the brain's almost jammed up itself. So now there will be mind racing, hard to make decisions, what can rely on. So something that will always help, even if we've just had a sudden shock. Our fight, flight, freeze is switched on at 0.025 of a millisecond. The sooner we do this one thing, we can get the mind back out of the fight, flight, freeze and into the big smart brain, the big four brain. And that is to slow deep breath in, slow deep breath out. Then count with your breathing, just a simple count, 1, 2, 3, 4 as you breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4 as you breathe out, just in your mind. You can do something different. You can say breathing in 1, 2, breathing out 1, 2, whatever is comfortable for you. And it'll only take a couple of those for the brain to switch or fight, flight, freeze and switch on the big, powerful brain again, the one that can think and make decisions and is able to see things in a more reasonable and balanced way.
Can I interject there, Eve,
Yes.
just to bring this back for our property managers? I know we're talking about like a situational and disaster here, but I think just for our audience to realise that this is for you. You're dealing with antagonised people or people in these situations as much as for them to, do their breathing. This is the tip for you. Come back to your breath. Me as a yoga teacher as well, as a real estate professional, I know breath is so important. And if you can just remember that one tip of finding your breath, grounding yourself and slowing down through counting, I think that's a great tip, Eve. Thank you. Bring us back.
And with the complex situation the real estate agents are in, they may have their own situation, and then they've got, of course, the barrage of calls. Now, this is being aware that that's what's happening to them, and the real estate agents themselves having something similar going on depending on their circumstances. How are they going to manage? Because they're on the end of the phone with clients, tenants who are doing all of these, terrified, needing help, but they can't be their psychologist. They're not their psychologist. And what's really important is to find your own strategy for how you hear, but quite quickly take them to the specific query, concrete as possible, that they phoned for. And when they say, yes, but this, because, likely the brain will be going off, but you don't understand, things like that. And I'm sure you deal with difficulties every single day, but this will be escalated. If we think then that their mind is still not operating clearly, they are just, if it's fight, flight, freeze going on. So you can even yourself say, it's really been tough. If you'd like to take a few slow breaths, then it'll help. We can just sort of try and think more clearly, more slowly and clearly to work on this problem. Even that, they may listen, and then it'll make a difference. But the thing is, not being in the role of a psychologist as you aren't, it's not your job actually to do a lot of that, to settle them down. So you can suggest, I'm not making it personal, but a lot of people are finding it helpful to phone Lifeline or to see someone, but I'm aware that those lines get just backed up, and I'm aware that psychologists and counsellors, there's quite a queue for them, and yet that's still helpful. Another thing they can do is possibly write down their thoughts, the clients, just to write it down, and then they can see it in words. And there's something about, instead of the mind spinning at the enormous rate that it does, they've got the words and they can be more, just more settled, coming to terms with things. But all of that is not your, I'm so sorry, I've cancelled everything and it's still pushing.
That's okay. And you're right. I think everyone can put up their hand that we all feel like psychologists as real estate agents. You're dealing with divorces and DV situations. We deal with, and then natural disasters, and we're putting on psychologist hats, and we're not the psychologists. We're there to work out how we can accommodate people and do it, of course, with empathy and with listening to them. But at the end of the day, we've got a job to do, and we need to find what is it that they actually need. I love that tip of the client writing down the information, but I think us as professionals, journaling is great. You know, start, if you're not sure how to journal, just write a question and answer it, or have a conversation with yourself. Getting those thoughts out of our head is a great way to find clarity and to dump all that we deal with in a day into a book, and let the book deal with it. Thank you, Eve. So we've gone through the fight, flight, freeze, and the cortisol is, you know, in the body coming.
So now we're getting really clear that the client is there, but the role of the real estate agent is to assist with property, etc. So the more that they can keep it to that, to keep switching. Yes, but you don't understand. So it'll need to probably be slowed down like you would almost to a child, because they're just not functioning. What I can do for you at the moment is this and this. Like speaking to a child in a way. Slow it down as simple as possible. Sometimes it won't be easy for the work you do. These are what we can do. So there's two decisions, first of all. You know, really slow it down, make it as simple as you can, so that there's some progress in sorting out the tenant's issue, but doesn't overwhelm them. Even one decision made will actually be helpful, and it'll be helpful for both people. They have a lot of other emotions too. There'll be guilt in the people who haven't got insurance. They will be guilt in the people who said, I was going to do this and I never did. So, and really, what is the benefit of bashing yourself up with guilt? You know, whether it's a real estate agent who realizes that one client they hadn't got to doing the upgrade with. There's no point in doing that either. It's like regret. It's just a real terrible waste of our brain power. So getting a clear sense of yourself and putting up these boundaries, and with the range of different people you have, some need to be firmer than others. If some people want to arrive at the office and rant and rave, then there would probably need to be a suggestion for them that you will not accept them attending. They will need to be by phone call. When I have a psychopath in the chair, I've learned a lot of good strategies, and mainly it's my desk stare. No nonsense face, very flat tone, and just to make it real. They can even say, I'm concerned about how distressed you are. Have you thought about? I would really like to help you, but I can most help you when you've had a chance to think through just this one question, or these two questions, or this is what I can help you with. So almost make it as if your strategy for dealing with the most difficult clients on earth, you probably already know who those are, but just adjusting this for the fact that it is shock and stress. But we do know there are narcissists, and we do know there are sociopaths. So you probably already got quite a lot of experience dealing with people that aren't the easiest to deal with. And of course, for some of them, their situation is far worse than anyone else, and you should be fixing theirs. And again, it's just this really straight face, business-like, to the point. It's that different. The more you slow down, actually, the more the client slows down. There's some things about mirroring that just happen. The unconscious brain is operating on all of these. So you'll have some that will handle that, some who won't, and you'll just have to keep them on a hold to whatever. And I love what the insurance do, an email to follow up each time of the calls. We could see you, however, unless for us to make progress, we'll need to do, and whatever your plans can be. Could you answer these 3 questions? When I have those, I'll be ready to discuss things with you. So just really baby steps. And then the final stage, which is the nicer one, now people have had the time to recover from most of the shock. They are starting to make plans. Some of them will be just right into it and easy to deal with. Some people who have this needy, or I'm special, or I should get special treatment, you just continue with them the way that is respectful to your own self and the professional job you do. If someone is ranting and raving, you will say, I'm afraid this is not helping us proceed. And if they then start to get aggressive, you can presumably, and again, I'm not sure of all your rules, I will need to end this right now. And if they don't want to end it, well, I suppose you call police or who whatever you do, if it's because some people will be at the end of their tether and you're their target because you're the only one that's going to listen.
It is. So, it's always the property manager's fault.
Yes, really think of your safety and have some protocols in place, even more secure. But keep remembering that one. You're not their therapist, you're not their mother or their carer or someone else. So finding the balance where you are the professional, you will be patient, but the focus when they come in is whatever their particular problem is.
I did want to, thank you, Eve. I did want to, and we're running out of time, we're screaming to 2 o'clock. Quickly, I did want to then go into the type of people that we're dealing with, and that narcissist is all over social media at the moment. It seems to be the buzzword, and sociopath. So we do come across these in real estate, and I just wanted to give our real estate professionals a little bit of a quick snip, and you gave me a great paragraph yesterday on, but I'm unsure of which was which. So I've got a definition and I'll read it out. If you can tell me if this is a narcissist or a sociopath, Eve. I've got a definition of no empathy and no conscience, and can take complete advantage and make demands. They charm and lie without telltales, so you can't see and identify. And they whittle you down little by little. So is that a narcissist or a sociopath?
A great way of describing it, though, that's closer to the sociopath. The sociopath has 0 conscience and 0 empathy. And I imagine everyone on this call just does not have that. They have one or the other. So they feel nothing. And in fact, they feel instantly enraged if they're not getting what they want to. So woman meets a handsome, charming, intelligent, rich man, and he'll slowly whittle it down and start to criticize or something until she's broken and hopefully comes in to see me and we can sort that.
Yeah.
And we can sociopath when he comes in.
And so is that how come they can lie without that's why they can lie without the telltales, without us picking it up, because they don't have that conscience that's guiding them.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And people can't believe it because they're so charming up front, nearly always charming. The person, and then there's just this, if only you were being, I'm so helpful to you, but you're just never, and they do all of this stuff, and the person's mind just gets completely messed. It is their fault. They're to blame for everything, and they should try harder, which is, of course, not a good thing. So that's 9 to 10% of people are sociopaths. We can call sociopaths psychopaths. It's just America, and different people call it. It's the same thing. No conscience. And
whereas a narcissist do have a conscience, but they don't have the empathy, so they're less likely to lie. And you said something else, I don't know, but they'll exaggerate, and have feigned empathy. So you're giving an example yesterday, they'll flick the steering wheel towards a cyclist on the road because it gives them a thrill. So they're actually wanting to make your life difficult.
Well, that would again would be the more psychopath. Anyone that's doing something as cruel as that, who may actually hit the cyclist by accident. So the narcissist, and again, these are all in grades. So worse, well, we know Trump, but I'd put him in the category of both. So with the narcissist, they are the most important person in the room. They are special. People are so fortunate to be with them. Everything they say is so helpful, and they're just, you know, the gift to the universe. Yeah, right. Yeah. And so there's all the disguises. Many narcissists are anxious. Yeah. Because if you're anxious and you go to see this friend, oh, I'm so worried about this, then people in the goodness of their heart try to help out. What can I do? Well, they're hooked, and they're always anxious, and they're always needy. No, they're not.
So so we did start 5 minutes late, my attendee, so maybe we can go to 2:05, that's okay. So for my real estate professionals here, is that then putting in boundaries, Eve, for dealing with these type of people?
Yes. Some people, if they are difficult when they're in person, you might suggest that you're doing more online than anything, so they don't come into the office. For some, you can be very clear about what the points are. And when they go on to a different point, you can say, so that sounds like something new, so we'll put it for your next call, and just keep going back. So you're being professional, you're sorting problems, because your job mainly is a problem solver. Any extraneous gets put aside. Sorry to hear that, so we'll put that aside, and what we're focusing on is now. So what do you, and you sort of just talk in that way that they almost can't butt in when they're doing that, and each time it comes up, well, we've only got 10 minutes left in our discussion. Do you want to do this one? Because we won't be able to do two at this time. So be really clear in your mind what you are going to offer. You already know the people really well. If they phone and they're screaming at you immediately, you just talk over them. Don't even bother whether they can hear or not. I'm not prepared to be spoken like that, to like that. When you are feeling calmer, please feel free to phone me or email me and put the phone down, or whatever your rules are. I'm sure you've got already tremendous skills and practices for this. But if you can remember, when someone, the hardest thing for people with empathy is people come in and they are broken. You know, they've lost 2 children. Their life is absolute rubbish. They've been injured and won't be able to work again. I mean, the stories are just horrific. So to have empathy, but still you can't fix those problems. And it's tempting to, because the person's thinking is not clear, how to help. You can say, how about, and have even a list of things that you can point them on to. How about you go to the salvos? How about you, just to feel helpful at least, because I know that's what you want to do, help your clients, but not take the bullying, harassment, manipulation, not any of that. That's not going to help anyone.
Thank you, Eve. That's lovely. I could talk forever. There's so much more, guys, that I want to talk to Eve about. She's written a great book, and there's things about intuition in there. And I believe we're quite intuitive in real estate, and knowing of people and what you can and can't do. I do say to all of my students to have that list available, all of the services. Find out in your area that you are working in what services are available that you can refer people to, as Eve said, Lifeline or local food banks, support groups, etc. Especially in DV situations, you need to have all of that. So just to wrap up, Eve does have a copy of her book to give away, which is Ignite Your Power, Unmasking the 5 Faces of Anger. It's a great read. I've read it myself. Very enlightening and informative. And just, you've written it really well, Eve. It's a nice read. So Eve, can you give me a number between 1 and 1 moment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The number between 1 and 7 for me?
6.
3, 4, 5, 6. Prue, that is you. Prue, I'll have to get your details. I'll just unmute you for a moment, Prue, and we will send you through an e-copy of Eve's book.
So just if I can have the email, that will be lovely.
Okay.
And
lovely.
I'll send that today.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Prue. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As I said, we do have a closed Facebook group, and I will put information in there about Eve and her book, and about Ben and ready, sure. And by all means, we'll open a discussion there of any questions that you may have, things that we haven't covered. But an hour goes awfully quick, and it's 2:05 and time to wrap up. And you know, my real estate professionals are extremely busy, so they'll be wanting to get back to work. But the takeaway is everything in writing, breathe, go to a yoga class from the yoga teacher. I'll always recommend that. And look after yourself first. I think that's filling your own cup first, looking after your own safety and security to be able to deal with your clients. Thank you, Eve, for joining us. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll catch up in person soon. And thank you everyone who came along. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ada. Bye now. I'll